Alright, so a person who is not only interested in cars and likes cars, you know what I mean, and owns a lot of cars, but also manages and runs and does completely by himself a car YouTube channel, I'm going to be reacting to some of the insane car takes, specifically on the r/fuckcars subreddit on Reddit. So let's get into it. Alright, so as a person who actively has a list of cars I'd like to own in my lifetime, and runs a car YouTube channel discussing car history, promoting the use of cars, and even, dare I, suggesting what cars you should buy, I would say I'm pretty pro-car. But believe it or not, on the internet there are people which are mad about anything and everything, and today we're going over people who are anti-car. And this is it's a lazy video. It's just a collection of posts I found from the past, just scrolled down and screenshotted some of them, and we're going to talk about them here today. Alright, so post number 1. So this image I've been seeing everywhere, which is almost 100 years between these two. Can you imagine the next 100 plus years? And people say, oh, well, they look the same. And this proves that they don't really know a lot about how cars work, especially old cars or new cars. There is a very vast difference between those two cars. I mean, really, the old car essentially can't start itself, it's not as fuel efficient, it can't go as far, it doesn't store that much gasoline, it doesn't have modern safety features. The new car has so many modern safety features it can practically drive itself. I mean, sure, the same idea is the same thing. It's a box with 4 wheels, and the 2 front wheels turn, and on this case, the back 2 as well. But the thing is, what do people expect? Like, look at a TV from now versus a TV from like 50 years ago or whatever. I mean, what do you really expect? Like, how different do you expect them to be? Look at a laptop from now compared to like a Dell E-series from like they're not that different. Like, people forget that things are still, like, the evolution does not make things different, you know what I mean? Pianos will never be replaced with saxophones because pianos are pianos and saxophones are saxophones. That doesn't, like, new trains are still trains and operate in the same general function as old trains because it's a train. That's what you would expect. If we compared an old laptop to a new train, that would be a very different comparison. But we're comparing old apples to new apples, and when you get aside the fact that they're both boxes with 4 wheels with 2 of them that do most of the turning, then you'll realize they're actually very much quite different. Now, I'm not going to waste your time because this is a car YouTube channel, so if you're watching this video, you probably like cars. So I'm not going to talk about every single difference this way, you know what I mean? But this argument makes no sense. And that's something that we're going to see in here. A lot of humans are reasonable creatures. I'm going to go into a little bit of dialogue here. Humans are naturally reasonable creatures. Our greatest feature about being a human versus an animal is being able to reason. So when we meet something or someone that's unreasonable, it kind of scares us. Like, imagine this. There's a killer who's going to come and chop your head off. Would you rather have one who's not associated with you at all, or doesn't know you and just literally wants to chop your head off for no reason, with, you know what I mean, no reason, completely unreasonable, or someone who you cut off while you were driving? Most people, even though they would never admit it, would rather have someone they know chop off their head. Why? Because we fear unreasonability. Oh no, why? Humans want to find the answer to everything. That is what has led us to all these developments. If we didn't want to find the answer to anything, we'd still be... everything that we do in our daily life is through human advancement, so I can't even imagine a world without it. And this brings me to why I don't like a lot of anti-car people, because they're just unreasonable. And I don't mean that they're not willing to engage in a good faith argument, which they're not, but I just mean their points make no sense and they're kind of ridiculous. Now, I'm not just going to say that, let's get to some more. So, for this post, I'm just going to say they're vastly different, they're still cars, what do you expect? Next, we've got one this is another unreasonable argument. We've got one that's angry about 3/4 of a time capsule being taken up by a car. First of all, it's a large time capsule. Like, what do you, if it was a small one, then, if it was just a car, then that'd be, like, that would still make no sense, but I kind of get your point. There are boxes everywhere. As a person who used to live in a hoarder's house, there's a lot of shit in those boxes, a lot of very important stuff. What do you expect? Like, let's remove the car here. How do you expect them to fill up all that space? I mean, really, you could take literally every single released on tape or whatever and put it in a box. It's probably one of those boxes. I mean, what do you really expect? And also, let's just talk about why a car, because their argument here is, oh, cars are so centric in our society. It's representative of how much of our society is focused around cars. So their argument here is because essentially 3/4 of this time capsule, and this was something that's brought up in the comments, because 3/4 of this time capsule are taken up by a car, 3/4 of our society are focused on cars. And that's just being ridiculous. The reason why there is a car in this time capsule is because cars are the largest thing you could probably fit into a time capsule. You know, like, you get what I'm saying here? Like, you couldn't fit a house into a time capsule. I'm sure if, like, we made a time capsule today that was huge, we'd put a house in it. Cars are just the most popular thing with the distinct style language, which is a part of our everyday lives, which is small enough to fit in this particular time capsule. So again, this is just an unreasonable argument. This is just, well, why cars? And this, again, something we're going to see much more often. Okay, this one is just basic propaganda. Like, this is just really stupid. It doesn't make any sense. So first of all, car brains, that's a term they've coined, which is I'm a car brain, which is people who, they have a specific definition. I don't really care enough to learn about it, because remember, low effort video. Car brains when an automobile crashes into an orphanage. I don't get what the point is here. Like, not to be mean or anything, but when a car crashes into an orphanage, I don't really care. Like, I'm not saying that I don't care about the kids. I'll read about it on my news and say, oh, that's bad, but it's not going to have me saying we should get rid of all cars. You know what I mean? My grandmother once, she dropped a knife on her foot, she didn't feel it, and then she walked around the house bleeding. That doesn't mean we should get rid of all the knives in the house. You know what I mean? But just, be more careful next time. Accidents do not mean, can we prevent them in the future and educate people better? Yes, but car brains when an automobile crashing into an orphanage is not really, it was just an accident. It probably hit the gas instead of the brake. As a person who lived in, Cleveland, we had a post office which was rammed into like 3 times a year just because old people go to the post office, you know what I mean? And they, make that mistake a lot. So I don't get the point here. Also, this is what strikes me as highly propaganda here is when an automobile crashes into an orphanage, like the orphanage is like the thing, you know what I mean? Like, they picked it so perfectly. I'm surprised they didn't say large truck crashes into an orphanage. You know what I mean? Like, they picked the location, so they didn't say when it crashes into a post office or a Culver's. Of course it's an orphanage, because little kids, you know what I mean? We get the point, or they should have said school. I think that would have been a bit better, but school is just normal kids. Orphanage are disadvantaged kids, so I get how that's a little bit higher on the ladder there. And again, this is just dumb, and also they make up an argument that doesn't exist. It's the e-scooter's fault, not the smog-belching, dangerous SUV truck. First of all, no one has an opinion. Like, if that happened in my local hometown, I'd say, wow, that's terrible. I wouldn't have an opinion on it. I wouldn't be like, oh, this is so bad, we gotta get rid of cars. Again, not a good faith argument. And no one's making that argument. You know what I mean? Like, no one cares. I hate to break it to you. But when, like, the best thing about being human is that you realize that nobody really cares about anything. Bad things can happen and then people just don't notice. And the last thing they're gonna do, like, they could say, oh, we should put, ballasts or something there to prevent this from happening. Yeah, they're not gonna say, oh, it's the e-bike's fault somehow. That's just you're just inventing your own fake argument that doesn't exist. If I had all day to invent a fake argument which doesn't exist just to make people mad, trust me, I could do it. Alright, so here's something. This was just an idea of, people not being able to afford housing because they pick up big trucks. Here's the thing, and it's specifically Americans, which shows that they're not really from America, or they might be. It doesn't even matter. That's not even something I'm going to be focusing on. Point is, they can spend their money on whatever the hell they want. You know what? It's their money. They can spend it on. Now, you can say that's being unreasonable. Like, if you don't have a roof over your head and buy a $9,000 laptop, some would say, oh, well, they're going to mine Bitcoin. They're going to do something interesting with that to improve their situation. I would typically agree with that, but you could also say that probably wasn't best use of money. You could have bought a cheaper laptop and still done the same things just a little bit slower. I would agree with that argument too. But what someone spends their money on is not really any of your, like, I'm not saying you can't have an opinion about it, but I'm saying, why is it an entire Reddit post? You know what I mean? People do bizarre things, and the amount of people buying a gigantic truck so that, you know what I mean, and they can't afford their house or whatever is really not as great as you think it would be. It's more popular here in the United States. Why? Because we're such a civilized country. And I'm not talking about, third world countries and all that crap. What I'm saying is, our economy is so good in the United States that we can afford luxuries like large, luxurious, nice trucks, and we don't. You know what I mean? They're more status symbols than anything. Another example of this would be American lawns. Americans pay for all this land, and yet they only live on about 25% of it because, they just want it to look nice. We have the luxury of doing that. Someone who only has $200,000 to buy a house, is just going to buy a house with as little land as possible because they don't really need or care about the land. It's about where you are financially and how comfortable you are and what you value. Another thing is the thumbnail of this video. I couldn't really find it because I'm not in these circles, and you know what I mean? Like, I just couldn't find it. I could probably look, but again, low effort. One thing that cracks me up about this is you have no idea, and they're trying to make the truck look really big and, you know, fancy, when they chose like a 2016 Ford F-150 XLT. It's a middle trim level used Ford F-150, which is about the most economical truck in the smaller trim levels you can buy. Not some GMC Sierra or something large like that, you know what I mean? Or the Sierra HD. They didn't choose anything like that. They chose a very modest used mid-trim level pickup truck. So this is, if you think this is unnecessarily large or luxurious, I mean, it's a mid-trim level full size, which is the most efficient type of truck from like 10 years ago. So I don't know what they're all upset about. Here's another thing where this really doesn't make sense to me. For me, an example of Americans being able to spend their money on large unnecessary vehicles that make them happy is a good sign. People have more money than they have ever in the past to spend on things that make them happy. I have 3 Casio watches next to me because they make me happy and I buy them. If I had, you know, if I was operating with more income in and out, then if I wanted to buy a truck to make me happy, why the hell shouldn't I be able to do that? You know what I mean? And then they propose, this is really stupid. This is just showing that people aren't in good faith. If you were in good faith and you wanted the best for humanity, you'd say, I want people to be able to spend their money, which they work hard to earn, on things that make them happy and things that they want. This argument is essentially they shouldn't have what they want because I don't want them to have what they want. So let me impose this one-sided tax. It's a tax on gas for some reason. Don't they realize that this already happens? Like, if you're going to drive on certain toll roads, they charge you more if your car's very heavy, you know, and you pay more for brakes, you pay more for gas, stuff. So they're already paying more for owning a large vehicle, and if they're willing to accept that cost, why the hell shouldn't they? Now, a lot of people are going to get political here, especially since I'm in the United States, and say, well, do you agree with Trump's, you know, $100 thing on hybrids? No, I think that's stupid and fucking annoying. If I want to pay more for hybrid because I want to spend less on gas, I should be able, in a free country, to spend more on a hybrid to pay less on gas. I am actively making that decision. That doesn't mean that truck owner, you know what I mean? Like, it is a conscious decision. There are already pluses and minuses for this. And it is not a good faith argument to say people shouldn't be able to spend money on the things that make them happy just because I don't want them to. This is another thing that people don't really understand about America, specifically on abortion and stuff like that. They say, I don't think abortion is, I would say, I don't think abortion is moral, so I don't want it in the United States. The thing is, you can separate what you want individually from what you want for the United States of America. I think the best quality of the USA is freedom. So, you know, do I think, you know, and here's where things get in the weeds here. But a truly intelligent, smart person should be able to separate what they personally want, what they would personally want for their family and their kids, from what they want for their country. I want different things for my kids and my family than I do for the rest of the United States, because part of the rest of the United States is giving other people the freedom to choose what they want for their kids and their families, which is separate from what I would choose. So this entire argument of I want this, so let me change everything, it's really stupid, and it makes no sense. Again, in bad faith as well. All right, now here's one that just doesn't make sense. And here's the thing that bothers me with e-bike kids is they say, oh, well, my bike can go faster than your car. Yeah, but my car has air conditioning. My car has 5 seats. And you may be able to go 65 miles per hour on that bike, but trust me, I'd rather be in my car. My car goes up to, 100 miles per hour? I wouldn't want to be in my car at 100 miles per hour. I barely want to be in it doing 80. You know what I mean? Like, this is not being reasonable. Why do people even... Now, I will say there is a valid point in here, which is blind spots and stuff, but that's more a personal preference and more about anxiety and, you know, personal issues, rather than general people. I love my car. I would rather ride in my car, my specific car, my 2015 Prius and my RAV4, than any other mode of transportation on the planet. So this is just stupid. Driving is just uncomfortable in general. I'm not going to lie. This is just dumb. I can't, like, driving is not uncomfortable in general. You've got a seat which will bend in literally any way you want just to fit your body. You have a steering wheel which can go in any direction you want. Maybe they spent their entire life driving like a smart car and they're 9 feet tall, but I don't even know what they're talking about here. My anxiety, this is again more of an anxiety issue. 3 huge areas of blind spots. That's why you have mirrors. That's why you have a head which can move and check. I mean, come on, speed up or slow down a little bit, or there are tons of things to check blind spots. Or you can even buy a car that does not have blind spots. You can always test drive a car. I don't know why people, again, this just shows that the argument is not in good faith. I could buy a car like cars that have extremely low blind spots would be like, a good hatchback with small pillars, 90s car. There are always cars. The best part about a free market and stuff like this is that you can always buy a car that's old or that's different if you want specific things out of your car. So instead of saying, I don't get what people like driving, just say, I don't like my particular car because my anxiety spikes when I have blind spots. Buy a car with less blind spots. I really don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? And it's like a fight or flight is activated the entire time while driving. My body physically can't relax at all. Again, this is kind of an issue. Walking and biking are not more comfortable to me. Why? Well, I would say walking isn't more comfortable, no, because I'm sweaty and I'm exerting myself. I'm a lazy American, I'll admit to that. But what I'm saying is, I mean, this is just ridiculous. I for them, maybe. For everyone else, air conditioning, 5 seats, the ability to store stuff with you that can't fit in a purse. You know what I mean? There are plenty of benefits to driving. And that's why people even prefer driving over walking or biking, because it's, let's be honest here, infinitely more comfortable. This is another bad faith argument. You do realize stuff happens, and also because I think my convenience is more important than other people's lives, it's street cleaning. Alright, it's a douche move to leave your car when you know they're going to be cleaning the street and it says signs and stuff. That's annoying. But, shit happens. Come on, if we're all human here, I know you like to pretend like you're not human or it doesn't apply to you, stuff, but you make accidents happen. Have you ever left your bike somewhere where it shouldn't be for a little bit because you were just going in to grab a coffee, or you're moving some furniture and it took longer than you expected, or you had a family emergency? Like one time, I'll just give a hypothetical because I don't want to get too personal here. Let's say you go to visit your grandma, she's on the floor, she's bleeding to death, and you're calling 911 doing CPR. Well, guess what? Your car's probably going to be in the street for a little bit longer than you intended, instead of just dropping off the bakery. Now, that's the extremist of situations, but what I'm saying is, sometimes you do things purely by accident, and your inability to recognize that proves that your argument is, again, stupid and just bad faith. You know what I mean? It's just like, guys, accidents happen. Now, that doesn't, like, whenever I make an accident, I'm willing to accept the penalties. Like, fine, I had to pay, $180 to resuscitate my grandmother. Fine, I'll pay it. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that there shouldn't be consequences, but, I mean, this is a little egregious, don't you think? And also, stating something for someone is just, it's not even punishment. Like, having a really the sticker is the annoying part. Both of these are just as annoying, but the pink one is preachy and annoying, meanwhile the green one is just, you know what I mean, just this person did this thing. Meanwhile the red one is like a personalized attack against car brains. Okay, and now we have another bad faith argument. Again, this is just overly performative. The floor is yours, when you know you're going to get downvoted to hell if you really say anything. Another thing is the ability to recognize that you do not represent all of humanity. You represent humanity, but not all of it. I prefer small fuel-efficient cars. That doesn't mean that I think everyone should have to drive small fuel-efficient cars, because my needs are different from everyone else's. This is what makes good society good. This little argument of, oh, you know what I mean, and I will say, in your specific condition and situation, car-specific cities are probably not the best for you. But that doesn't mean you can't realize that for a lot of other people who drive cars, car-dependent cities are important for them. And also, just because a city is car-dependent doesn't mean it doesn't allow all other forms of transportation. This is what they're doing. They're essentially backing you into this thing, where it's either, just because you drive a car, no other forms of transport are allowed. That's not what anyone is arguing for, and that doesn't make any sense. And they like to justify this argument, because the moral gymnastics they're using to justify this, by, oh, look at how big this parking lot is. It just doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Parking lots exist, but so do train stations and airports. That doesn't mean I think I should turn the airport into a parking garage, or that you should turn a parking garage into an airport. Let's just respect everyone has their own modes of transportation. Now, is there an argument to say that city should be a little bit less car dependent, and that city should have more walkable areas? Yes, you can say that, but pretending like it's either you drive a car and no other form of transportation exists, or all other forms of transportation exist and we get rid of all cars, is just bad faith and just stupid. Alright, so this is just, I have the transcript of the video here because this is something I want to talk about, and this is the post that I wanted to talk about the most and actually inspired this video, is this angry car mass insanity theory, it's just the most dumbest thing I've ever heard. Now, because, unlike the person in this video, I am not arguing in bad faith, I'm not actually going to watch the video. Here's the transcript for you. So you read this. Just pause it and read this. And then is that argument slightly believing if all other arguments didn't exist? Sure. You could get me to believe that. Or, here's an argument which works on literally everything. Take a look around you. Now, where you are. Anywhere you go represents you. Let's say you're in a coffee shop. Are you in a Starbucks? Are you in a Big B's? Whatever you're in represents what you choose and what you value over another. Let's say you're at your house. Fantastic. Even better. Look around your room. What things do you have in your room? What Casio watches? What is around you? Those all represent you. So, is it easier to say all this crap, which is you're driving a Predator and we think that cars can secretly kill us as long as the light is green and all that stupid crap, or just to say cars are just extensions of people's personalities? Alright, here's a personal example. You've seen the thumbnail for this video, you've seen the channel. I own 3 main cars at the moment. A 2012 Toyota Prius, a 2015 Toyota RAV4, and a 2007 Toyota Prius. These cars, what makes more sense to you? That my cars are super predators and I think that they can kill other people. So for the 2008, I want it to have that slicked back roof. That way when I hit someone and the pedestrian rolls off the roof, I want it to seem angry. Or, for the angry face 2012, that I want the pedestrians to know that my car's coming again. get them, or for my RAV4 that I want it to hurt as much as it possibly can when I hit a pedestrian, so I want that nice, steep front end? Or is it easy to believe that I like cars that look like eggs and that are fun colors because I like eggs and I like fun colors? Which is more believable? And you want to know, if you really think that I chose the cars that I chose because subconsciously I think they're predators which are designed to kill, you're arguing in bad faith. And I mean, come on, can we just, enough with the copium, just take the tube out, let's just, enough with the painkillers, let's just talk about this honestly here for a second. Really, think about how ridiculous it is to make that argument. Your car, the person watching this, because none of these people have cars because they hate them, and if they do have cars, they spend so much time bitching about it, they can't even think about why they picked the damn thing in the first place. But the car that you drive, why did you pick it? Did you pick it because subconsciously you want it to make it angry and upset? And let's say, just because you picked your car to look angry and upset doesn't mean that you want to kill pedestrians. It means that you like things that are chic, sheer, interesting, new age, sharp, that look, designed, well designed, that look like, like an engineer touched it, you know what I mean? I was going to say I drive a MacBook Air. I use a MacBook Air because I like it thin. If I drove an angry car, I drive an angry car because I like it to look thin, new, kind of agile, you know what I mean? Or is it because I want to kill pedestrians? Again, it just doesn't make sense. And the idea of the best thing about a good argument is that it works other places too. The argument of cars represent you works well because the laptop which I'm doing this on, which is my new M5 MacBook Air in Starlight or whatever, it represents me. The configuration, the color, all that works here too. It's not because I secretly want to hit pedestrians or whatever with my computer. It just doesn't make sense. Cars, and we're getting into the meat and potatoes about why these people are so unreasonable. They know that this little argument which they've created, essentially what it is they do the jumping jacks to get to this ridiculous claim that they're making. They do the jumping jacks there. Then they go back and fill in the tracks. So what cars represent to them is people in which they are opposed. People who, whether it's the LGBTQ movement or political left, whatever they are on, or even the opposite of that, cars of the other side, whatever side they're playing for, the cars the other side represent those other people. So they're not actually mad at cars, and they don't actually believe any of these. Some of them do, but most normal people aren't actually stupid enough to believe that just because cars exist, nothing else can exist, or are bad faith enough to argue in such bad faith. They hate whatever they're fighting against enough to hate anything that represents them. And in this case, it's squatted trucks and big cars and SUVs and that stuff. That's where I think the crux of the matter comes from, because these arguments are just too ridiculous to be real. I mean, they're like satire. And just one last one for good measure, really. Anyone else find these news stories demonizing e-bikes kind of infuriating? Not really. I mean, I like cars, and so I think that this, which is demonizing cars, is kind of annoying. But if I really liked e-bikes, arguments against e-bikes, they might upset me a little bit, but I can at least see where they're coming from. The difference is, cars are used by adults. E-bikes are used for children, and their parents buy them that. If my parent was going to buy me slime or whatever, if I was 8 years old, they'd probably want to know about the dangers of slime getting in carpet. It's no different. So, sure, if you really liked e-bikes, would you say demonizing e-bikes is annoying? You could absolutely say that. But can you admit that they don't really have a point? And don't act like every single time a car drives through a Christmas parade, there's not 1,000 news articles on it. Give me a break. Alright, and here's where I'm going to wrap it up. I'm just going to say that can we all just agree to be reasonable here? Because if you can't agree to be reasonable, then just stop watching the video. You're not used to me. You're not of use to anybody. Your opinions aren't really that important because you're not making arguments for the better of society. You're making arguments for whatever stupid thing you've convinced yourself of today. You don't actually care about the little children dying. You're using them as a ploy to get back against the people who you view are on the other side. That is what's really happening here. Can we both agree? So all the unreasonable people are gone. Reasonable people, can we agree that these stupid lifted trucks are ridiculous? They're trashy, they're disgusting, they're just bad. Can we all agree that we don't like the taste or the design language of some of these larger trucks, or that for our personal cases, I wouldn't like the fuel economy or the fuel costs for those cars, and that it's a little bit annoying that we pay taxes, and sometimes you could make the argument that the larger trucks don't fully compensate for the amount of damage that they do to the roads, which we pay to maintain? Could we make that argument? Could we make the argument that, taxes on hybrids standards are really annoying and stupid because it's a free country and we can drive whatever the fuck we want to drive and we shouldn't be penalized for making a smart decision. We can all agree on that. And then can we also agree that just because I don't like trucks doesn't mean no one else can drive them? Alright, so with that, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And here's the thing. I chose, just for this video, a lot of people would have gone, here's what they believe, Burger King foot lettuce. A lot of people would have gone crazy with this video and just done, you know, super high quality. What? Like, this isn't a high quality argument, so why does it deserve a high quality video? The answer is it doesn't. And I think I've done more in this conversational classic video than any of the other, these car brain morons or crazy videos. You know what I mean? So with that, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you all real soon.